Hi, I'm Debbie Nelson, and I work with Nixing Publishing. I'm a contributing editor and project manager here in the United States, and I'm here with Adrian Nixon, who is joining us from Yorkshire, England. He's the editor in chief of Nixing Journal. Hi, Adrian.
Hello again, Debbie. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We've been doing this series on graphene and a lot of questions that I think a lot of people have about it. Today's question is really interesting because it involves a favorite place that I haven't toured yet, which is the Geek, which is short for Graphene Engineering Innovation Center. And what we want to know today is what's the difference between the Geek and the NGI, the National Graphene Institute? They're both located at the University of Manchester.
And they're both world-class institutions, but they do different things. So I'll share my screen again, and we'll have a look at some pictures. So share this. I'll just minimize our video so you can see. Can you see that okay, Debbie?
Yes, it's beautiful.
It
Looks
is.
like an
It's a
arena.
fun. It's like what? Sorry.
It looks like an arena.
It does a bit, doesn't it? Yes. It's actually, you could think of the NGI, or the National Graphene Institute, as one big clean room, laboratories and offices. This is where, oh gosh, lots of really, really clever scientists in white coats and full clean room gear play around with some of the cutting edge research into graphene. The building itself was built in about 2015, so it's 5 years old, 2020 when we're recording this, and it's just had its 5th birthday. This is where Nobel Prize winners lived and where they work a lot of the time, although Andre does actually work in a separate building. This place really is about doing fundamental research and actually preparing graphene, some of the highest quality graphene samples produced here at the NGI. So it's a fun place to work by the looks of things. And I go in there a fair bit, and you'll eventually get to see it too. So that's on the campus at Manchester University. Is that okay for the NGI so far?
Yeah, you mentioned something about where you interviewed Andre when you did
Oh yeah,
the
yeah. A few months ago, we were interviewing him in the room on the top floor up here. So we had about 200 of the world's top scientists and industrialists in the world of graphene. They had a live event, and they kindly asked me to interview Andre live on stage. So it was quite good fun. He's a really entertaining guy.
well, it sounds fantastic, and I do look forward to seeing it. Um, so how where is this in relation to the Geek? Is
Good
it close by?
question. It's right. So if you come out of the front door here, walk down this street, and then it's about 500-600 meters, sort of in that direction, facing away from the front of the NGI. So it's a little bit further away towards the centre of Manchester, but it's a doable walk between the two buildings. And
No,
this particular one was built. Let's say it was built 5 years ago, and it was mainly graphene flagship money that was used to build the building.
okay, great. Well, now for the Geek, you mentioned that Graphene Flagship was mainly funding the NGI. Now the Geek is funded by Graphene Flagship as well, and also Masdar, correct?
Yes, yes. This is the Graphene Engineering Innovation Centre, GEIC, and as you quite rightly say, Debbie, it's pronounced geek. Yeah, this is called the Masdar building because a large part of the funding came from the Masdar family or the Masdar Corporation in Abu Dhabi, along with graphene flagship money, along with UK government money as well, and Manchester University money too, and the university, and also the City of Manchester has funded this. And this is where Rob and I work up on the top floor up here when we're visiting the Geek.
And it has great windows that have the frosted hexagon shape on it.
Yes,
Can
you
you
can
see in the
just see that. Yeah, you can just see them up here. You can just see some of the hexagon patterning on the windows up there. And this room down here, this is the boardroom, and again, this has got more hexagon patterning on it too. So when we want to do something posh, then they let us use some of the bigger rooms too.
This is fantastic. So, what is the difference between the two? Both of them are dealing with graphene. How does it?
Really good question. Yeah, they do different fundamental things, and for that, we'll have to look at something called technology readiness levels. So this part of the language that was developed by NASA to look at the way that innovation propagates. And it sounds complicated, but basically there's a scale of 1 to 9. A low TRL, a low technology readiness level number, it means it's closer towards the concept of something, so it's academic research. A high number, up towards 9, is closer towards commercialization or industrial mature products. And so something is well understood, the technology is out there being sold. So think of TRLs as a scale 1 to 9, concept to commercialization, and all these numbers have different definitions attached to them. Now, low TRLs, if we look on this graph here, we can see 1 to sort of 4-ish. Then we've got government work, universities work. This is research work right down from a pure idea through to feasibility studies to prove that something works. And then up at the sort of 6 to 9 level, then we're beginning to get adoption by commercial enterprises and industry, where private money comes in to fund things, and it gets built up, integrated into supply chains, so reliable commercial product can be sold to customers and customers will buy it. That's all fine and dandy. But the thing to focus on is this bit in the middle between 4 and 6. At this point, a lot of technologies, you probably hear, not only in the UK, but also the States and around the world, that a lot of great ideas never actually make it to market. One of the reasons is that great ideas start out being funded by universities and they're well supported. And then they get to a point where they're too big or too commercial for a university to justify supporting, but they're too small and not proven enough for the private sector to take it on board. And so we end up with an investment gap here where private investors see technologies in this area as too risky and maybe too long term, so they don't get investment. And government and universities see it as too mature and too long term, so it doesn't get invested. And you've got this investment gap, which is sometimes called the valley of death. And this is one of the reasons why lots of great ideas and great products never actually make it to market. Does that make sense?
Yes. So basically, the problem is that before the private sector is going to get involved, they're going to require more research, but there's not additional funding for that research unless they're willing to support it.
Yeah. Unless somebody's basically got the guts to dive in and take a risk. And there are private sector people out there who will. Elon Musk is a great example of that.
Yeah.
But by and large, most private investment organizations tend to operate with mature risk assessment modules, and everybody's analyzing the same information in the same way using the same analysis tools. So they always come up with the same result, which is, oh no, this is too risky, we won't invest. And so we end up with lots of great ideas that just run out of time. The people supporting them run out of their own money, and we end up with lots of great stuff which never ever makes it to the market. It's a lost opportunity.
Yeah, that's a shame. It seems like by providing something like this, it can give people an idea that if you want some of these great research in this great research that you hear about in graphene to actually come out into the marketplace, then we need some people that are going to be willing to step forward and be bold enough to invest.
Yeah, and that's never more important. As we're recording this, you and I are both in lockdown with the pandemic still raging around the world. And there's a medical emergency going on at the moment, but people will very quickly start to realize there's an economic emergency coming, and we've got to get existing industries back up and running, and that's fine. But also, there's going to be lots of businesses which won't make it through, and we need to replace them with the industries of the future, which means taking risks. And the investment world isn't really configured for that at the minute. So investment's never been more required for all these great new ideas. But there's still a lack of systematic understanding that we need to get into this valley of death and start to support it.
Yeah, and referring back one of our other videos when we talked about what graphene can be applied to, it's almost every type of industry you can imagine. So
Yeah,
this could be shared with anyone who's in industry that produces something.
there are so many industries and parts of our lives that graphene will touch. And because it's a multifunctional material capable of doing lots of different things. And this is why everybody's getting excited. And this is why the NGI and the Geek are built. Would you like to have a look and see how these organizations map to this TRL?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's have a look at the next graphic underneath. So what we're now showing is the same TRL scale. And now you can see that we've got, I'm just using Manchester as an example here, but here we've got the university itself down at the very low TRL levels. And this is exploring ideas and frontiers of knowledge. And that overlaps with the National Graphene Institute, the NGI, which then takes some of those ideas and tries them out for real and does feasibility studies, plays around in the clean rooms, has lots of really expensive toys, electron microscopes, scanning electron microscopes, all sorts of things to prove and explore the area. And then over at the other end here, at the high TRL, we've got industrial partners who can then collaborate and take graphene ideas and commercialize them, lock them into supply chains, make loads of money. And lots of people will make lots of money in the future from graphene. The interesting thing here is that, can you see where the Graphene Engineering Innovation Centre, the GEEK, is placed?
Yeah, it's right where that investment gap is. So
Yeah.
there mentioned something about a catapult or
Yeah, in effect, it's positioned right in this investment gap or the valley of death. And you could think of the Geek as being a little bit like a catapult, which is almost like a business startup support venture, but it's a little bit more than that as well, because it connects more thoroughly and it's more integrated into the academic side and into the industrial partner side too. The networks that the Geek has had almost supercharge it as a catapult model. So it's very, very good for supporting a very wide range of industries, all working on graphene. But that's pretty much how the organizations map to the strategic context of ideas coming from concept all the way through to commercialization. How about that, Debbie? Does that make sense to you now?
it really does explain how each of the parts of what's going on over in Graphene City and the University of Manchester and everything.
Yeah.
It makes it very clear as to how they function, especially with these technology readiness levels. I hope that it helps others as well to be able to understand this and share it with
Yes.
them.
So you now understand what the Geek is, what the NGI is, how it connects with industry, how it connects with academia, and how the whole thing works together in across a spectrum of intellectual activity and commercial activity, and how the two are brought together.
Fantastic. And I did want to mention that James Baker did a really nice tour of the Geek. It's a virtual tour for anyone who hasn't been there.
Yeah,
And
that's great. James Baker is the chief exec of Graphene at Manchester, which covers the Geek and the NGI and a few other things as well. Yeah.
uh, he's fantastic and did this wonderful virtual tour. So if anybody would like to take a look at it, it's actually on our Pinterest page. So
Excellent.
you can find information on our website. But thank you so much for your time talking about graphene and the Geek and NGI. Thanks, Adrian, and we'll have more to come.
Pleasure.